What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Book Club podcast. I'm your host, Joel Nieto, and joining me today is the one, the only, Mrs. Veronica Soto at Pray Teach Eat on Instagram and Twitter. How are you today, ma'am? How's day 25 of quarantine treating you?
Is it day 25?
I think so, yeah.
It feels like 325 for sure.
Doing good again, I know.
And day 325, I want my life back. For sure.
Do you though? Because I still like I think I'm with Mr. A on this one. I am liking quarantine life a little too much.
No, it's horrible.
All right, let's introduce our other host. Joining us for the first time is the notorious Gregory Cruz. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain.
Pretty good. How's life being Mr. Mom?
No different from any other day. I am the trophy husband.
That's a great answer for sure.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. This is the Movie Book Club podcast. Each week, we grab one movie from Netflix, we talk about it, and we keep our sanity while still keeping and maintaining this here friendship. If this is something you'd like to be a part of, please like, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Share it out with your friends. And at the end of the video, we're going to go ahead and talk about next week's Movie Book Club. That way you can watch, join along with us, and be part of the discussion. So the big Movie Book Club topic for this week was The Push. Now, guys, if this is your first time watching Movie Book Club, we start off with a very short, spoiler-free, broad-level thoughts before we get into our deep dive on the spoiler side of everything. Ms. Soto, what were your thoughts on Derren Brown's The Push?
You know, when he starts off the show, he's clear to let us know that it is a social compliance experiment. And he boldly states his mission. Can we be manipulated through the familiar forces of social pressure to commit murder?
So when you first dove in, I think you watched a little bit of it. I don't remember the strong feelings you had this time that you had last time. But what's the difference?
You're right. I don't know.
What was like your main problem with the show?
I don't know. I kind of feel like they picked on somebody, with weaker character. Yes. A guy like in Spanish that we say needed some like cojones,
What does that mean?
It means he lacks spine.
Let me look up what it means. How do you spell that?
So, Mr. Cruz, let me ask you your broad level thoughts on this thing. Miss Soto apparently had a big problem with them picking on old Chris. Chris, by the way, is the name of the victim / and he wasn't a volunteer.
Redhead guy. Yeah.
The redhead guy. What were your overall thoughts on The Push?
To me, if you're a fan of like corny David Blaine, Chris Angel specials on Fox, this is like right up your alley.
Corny, cheesy Chris Angel, David Blaine special. My goodness. Is that what the feeling you got too, Ms. Soto?
Like when I watch David Blaine, I kind of like freak out a little bit.
You don't have the cojones to do that.
Exactly. You're so right.
Okay. There's like a certain personality type that becomes a magician, and like.
I agree.
When I looked up like Chris Angel pics when he was a kid, David Blaine pics when he was a kid, they were just like some nerd children.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel like it draws that type of crowd. Cruz, were you ever into Magic?
The Gathering?
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the full-blown spoilers. So if you haven't watched The Push yet, please pause this video. Go to Netflix, look up Derren Brown's The Push, go watch it, and then come back to join us and hit play on this here video. That way you can be part of the discussion.
Can social compliance be used to make someone push a living, breathing human being to their death? Welcome to The Push.
So let's get right into it. Full spoilers on The Push. All right. Ms. Soto, what was the big problem, man? Like, you had an extreme reaction to this thing.
I don't know if it's this whole just being at home and this poor little guy, they go out of their way to say, he's your ordinary, decent guy.
He wasn't ordinary. That was the problem.
They made him look so, like, super sad, like this poor guy.
Okay, so hold up. Go ahead, Mr. Cruz.
Well, what kind of person do you think is trying to be on this dude's shows to begin with?
He's not trying to. He's trying to be on this show.
But he wanted to be on one of his other shows.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's get into the intro.
He has no experience at all. I mean, they're clear to show that he is inexperienced at.
I feel like he's that one gazelle, like you always see, like in the in like nature videos who like tend to walk towards the water first.
Yeah.
And all the other gazelles are like back. They sniff around and then, they get chomped by the alligator that is Derren Brown. Okay, so I broke it up into a couple sections. So the intro, like you said, the premise is, can a man be compelled to murder by basically following social norms?
Social pressure.
Were y'all familiar with Derren Brown before this?
No.
No idea who that was.
You had never heard the name. Well,
other than like, I remember seeing the promo for this like a long time ago, I guess whenever it first came out, watching the little Netflix thing come up, and then I was like, that's dumb. Then I just kept going.
So Derren Brown, he's a huge star in the UK right now, but he has definitely had his share of controversial topics that he's trying to do. For one, he had a cat in a box that was hooked up to like electrodes, and he was trying to manipulate somebody into pressing the button to kill the cat. He had another one where he faked somebody's death. He picked a mark, put him in a car, hypnotized them, and then whenever he woke up, he was in a car crash scene, and like he was outside his own body.
No.
So that was
that's
one.
Not nice.
There was another one where I think I sent y'all guys a link to this. Was on live television. He played a live game of Russian roulette. Do you remember this?
Mm-mm. I saw the other one where he like got this dude to like assassinate the guy.
Oh my gosh! Okay, did you see that one, Soto?
All the links that you sent, I did not watch. This was like a creepy, a long time ago, they used to have this show called Candid Camera. I don't know how old you guys were, but it's like, I'm going to play this joke on you. And then, at the end, guess what? You're on Candid Camera. And the people are like,
it's the same show. You're right. It's the same show, except at the end when you're like, hey, man,
these are like
you're on Candid Camera, you break down into tears.
How come nobody punches the guy, though?
Okay, so we've set up the premise. You know who this guy is. He definitely has a sadistic side to him. And so the first thing we actually see Derren Brown do is set up this scenario with an actor who's going to be a big part in the actual push scenario, and he convinces him to call a coffee shop and convince a guy at the counter to walk out of a coffee shop with the stroller of somebody's baby.
Yeah, but that's more of just picking on somebody that's just dumb.
The dude didn't even ask, who is this?
Well, he didn't have to. Remember the guy said,
whatever.
This is Officer Sergeant something from the England PD or whatever they said.
Yeah, see, well, these are the same people that get tricked by the Nigerian prince emails.
Cruz has no sympathy for any of these people. Okay, so what stuck out with that, there's two quotes. One, as the guy's pushing out the stroller, he goes, I've got somebody else's baby and I'm not happy about it. But he still did it.
Just super slowly, like somebody stop me, somebody help me, somebody.
He's like, okay, so after that, he turns to the actor who just convinced him, right? And the guy hangs up the phone, the guy who played the cop, and he's like, I feel horrible. That was horrible. He's like, okay, well, it's only going to get worse. And then it goes into the next thing, which is the screening. Mr. Cruz, you talked about, what kind of people it would take to fall for these kind of pranks. Mm-hmm. And Derren Brown had a very specific test in which to weed out all the individuals who were smart enough not to fall for it and convince all the other ones.
Yes, that... In the test, I guess people were going to come in the room and they're like filling out their paperwork. And so whenever everyone comes in, the Chris guy, the dumb guy, comes in, sits down, starts doing his paperwork, the buzzer goes off in the room, everyone stands up. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, what's going on here? I guess I'll stand too. And then they just keep doing it until more and more. Basically, who's the easiest person to manipulate that will comply to the social pressure norms?
It's like a version of, you ever heard of Pavlov's dog?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought. The whole bell ringing and the food and running out to when you hear the bell, and that's exactly what they did with these people. They Pavlov's dogged them.
No, okay, so the whole and then they said, anyone who didn't comply was removed, and everyone who did was screened. So they ended up with 5 people. It was like 2 guys and a girl, and then the main one was Chris. And so after that, we kind of follow Chris into the actual scenario of what the push is actually about. And I put meet Chris. This is like one of my little descriptions. I said, gullible, worried, no freaking spine, low self-esteem. Poor Chris, dude.
That
First
was
thing
wrong.
happened. Okay, so Cruz, you said this reminded you of like some low-level Chris Angel.
I wouldn't say low level because they have high-profile people.
That got me is that it wasn't low level. 50 cameras, 70 actors, a meticulous plot, dude. Body doubles, all kinds of stuff. Dude.
Well, there were parts where I was like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool." Like when Chris like is with the auctioneer guy that has his heart attack, and then it goes into showing how they made like the actual real life dummy corpse that looked exactly
let's get into it.
That was cool.
Okay, so Chris shows up to this place. He gets with that. What's the name of the guy who's kind of guiding him through all this? Huh? Tom, yes. So he basically finds himself in a scenario in which this billionaire type guy has a heart attack on a floor. And like Cruz was saying, he's then asked to move a body. Okay. There was many steps leading up to this. Like they were conditioning him, making Chris carry the bags, making Chris dress up in low attire to make him feel,
switch the vegetarian sausages.
Switch the vegetarian thing. All these things to condition this guy to respond to Tom's authority. And I do chuckle, but it made me laugh every time I saw it.
I knew that was coming.
Every time Chris would do something that was like, he's always like, oh, no.
Turning red and everything.
Turning red,
all the
panicking.
Time.
But
the
Darren
look
Brown,
in his eyes.
But Darren Brown is like there's one part when they begin to drag the body, and he's like, oh, he's dragging a dead body without asking questions. This is good. So
no, it was
Cruz,
not
at what
good.
point did you really get a picture of who this Chris guy was?
He was a little punk. Like,
dang, dude, you're brutal, man. So you have no sympathy in your heart for what this poor guy went through?
Feel not really.
No.
Like at first when there's like some stuff where like when he's conditioning him where he's like, oh, switch the vegetarian or vegan sausages. I was like, absolutely, because whoever's vegetarian.
So you would do that. That's not too far out of your wheelhouse.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I would do that.
I'll say leave those vegetarians alone.
I would not feel like socially. Oh no, that's not right. It's like whatever.
Hey, they made a choice to live a certain lifestyle.
If you're a vegetarian for health purposes, I see that. If you're like, oh, it's animals, it's mean to them, then.
So would y'all carry somebody's bag if they asked you to?
It depends on what it was for. I mean,
because I'm gonna be honest too, the whole vegetarian thing, honestly, as like I could probably, Masota, you shake your head, you wouldn't do that?
No. Some people they really like, it's a serious discipline to be a vegetarian. So when somebody decides not to eat meat,
it's no way to live.
Eat meat, they leave the vegetarians alone. They're not hurting anybody.
Speaking of hurting somebody, so Bernie dies. They drag him to the back, and like you begin to wonder, like, when is Chris gonna say something, like some kind of opposition at all? And the first time he ever says something is when they're like, Chris, open the box. And then he's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. He's like, and then then Darren Brown's like push him. He goes, Chris, open the box. And Chris is like, okay. And they go, they lift the body and they drop it in. And like at that point, it's like sky's the limit, dude. You're now hiding a body. Like in all honesty, if they told me to move the body to the back, I probably would.
No.
You have like all these people coming in. You don't want to be them traumatized. Move the body to the back, and then directly on 911. You know what I'm saying?
Right then and there, you just say, no, I'm not touching a dead body. Because it's like this whole charity doesn't affect him personally. If it was me, I'm like, nah, not doing that. This doesn't affect me. No, go call the ambulance, you psycho. Like.
And that was the thing. He asked, are you going to call somebody? But it never occurred to them that he could call somebody too. And he didn't do that.
He didn't have a phone, remember? Because remember, he had a friend bring him in, introduce him, and say, hey, can I borrow your phone? I got to call my mom or whatever. He gives him the phone, and then he never came back.
He could have borrowed the phone.
They didn't even try CPR. He just like assumed this. He by the time he
tried. I remember Tom was like, I tried. It didn't work. He's dead.
Oh, it's because he tried for what? The minute he was out of the room? It's not enough time. He's like, oh, I tried. I guess he did his best. I'll just leave him there.
Okay, so again, we haven't really touched on what the main ruse is. The main setting is a banquet hall that's about to host like a big auction. So like Bernie is the big benefactor. He's donating $5 million to this charity to help, kids and underprivileged, whatever. But then one of the first things that happens is the case of mistaken identity, because no one's ever really seen Bernie. He's just an old guy with a lot of money. So I think the auctioneer assumes that Chris is Bernie, the guy they just put in the box. And right off the bat, Chris doesn't stop it. And if that wasn't enough,
he has to talk in front of everybody as if he's Bernie.
The guy that is in the box, dude. But then he has a speech to give.
And then you see him.
This is probably why I started feeling bad for Chris. Because like the first guy to actually stand up and talk is Tom, because he's like, I have to go make this quick speech. I'll be right back. And Chris is like, don't leave me. You come right back. He's like, yeah, I'll be right back. He's like, please. Like he did not want to be left alone. And that's when I realized like this guy's probably not, he's probably not the
sharpest tool in the shed.
Well, not just that, he always had this like look of like mental anguish on his face and in his eyes. He looked like tormented. I felt bad for him.
And that's the thing. Like, okay, I felt bad for him, but like
I thought it was funny.
It was like they were just ramping it up. I was so stressed out.
I love that. I loved it. I was laughing the whole time. My engagement in the push was very low. Once I started seeing like it was almost like a prank show where I was just like, whoa, let's get this guy. It's hilarious.
See, and it took me 2 days.
Oh, you split the show up in two.
Well, I split it in half. Yeah. The first day I couldn't sit long enough to enjoy it or, get into it.
Okay, so at what point did you start enjoying it?
I have to say I didn't really get into it as much as I did the first time I watched it. It just bothered me a little bit more. So, and when they moved the guy around the building to the stairwell, and then he was like saying, kick him or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
I was like, no.
Okay, so
don't do it.
From the crate, they put him in a wheelchair, they roll him out. They can't go out the front door because the wheelchair won't fit.
Right.
Yep.
So the plan is to take him to the stairwell, leave him in the stairwell, and then when the whole thing is done, we'll have somebody find him. And poor Chris, because like, no, we'll find him. We can't do this. You can tell he's still trying to fight to keep some level of kindness while still going along with this disturbing plan. And Tom is like, okay, well, he's falling down the stairs. He'd have bruises, no? So, and it's always this, we're going to have to do something, Chris,
right. It's almost like Manson, where apparently like he never committed the murders. He just got other people to do his bidding. That's who Tom was. Was it Charles Manson? Is that right?
Yeah. And he never really asked him. He just kind of like gave direction. He was like
ordered,
Yeah.
So he tells him to kick him. They leave Bernie's body there. He refuses to kick him. He comes back out. They see that board of investors for the charity. And that's when they meet his wife, dude. And that's and that leads to the first big twist of the show, which is Bernie ain't dead.
He just got a condition.
He has a condition that makes him pass out. He goes pale, clammy, his pulse drops, whatever, and all he needs are these pills. So then they pull the board to the side, and they're like, all right, take it over here. Now we're gonna open the stairwell in just a little bit, but before we do it, we have a situation. Chris, go ahead and tell them what happened. And then Chris kind of runs through the scenario to the shock of everybody there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, let's go look at the body. Let's give him these pills. They open it up and
he's alive.
And Bernie's pissed.
It just shows all these people are horrible people because they're just like, yeah, we can't lose that money.
Okay, so they go up to the roof to confront Bernie, who's in the beginning of the show, they established that Bernie likes to sit on the edge and smoke a cigarette, to kind of implant that notion later. So when they go up there, Bernie's livid, and he brings out this recorder that he had the whole time, which they kind of introduced earlier, and he has it all on tape. Everything Chris has said, everything Tom has done, kick him in the stomach, dumping a body, all that stuff. And he starts saying, I'm definitely writing a check. Like, I'm ruining your life. I'm a millionaire. You've left me for dead. Like, you know what? I'm so stressed out. Let me go smoke a cigarette on this ledge real quick.
Well, that, and then when he's just sitting there smoking, like all the other people just like huddle up how they're going to do some plan. And it's like, he's in earshot of you. They weren't even like really whispering that much.
Oh yeah, there's like two other, okay. So then Bernie goes, sits on the ledge to smoke a cigarette. They pull a huddle automatically, like, okay, what are we gonna do, guys? What are we gonna do? It's obvious, isn't it? One of us, like, we're gonna have to kill this dude, right? And then they say, well, which one of us is gonna be the one to do it? Sorry,
Chris.
Yeah. Again, dude, I just felt bad because like the anguish on Chris's face, he's like, no. And you can tell finally he reached a point where enough was enough and he's not going to go through with this thing.
Oh, yeah.
But at that point, dude, it's like
a whole movie, fine. finally.
They basically ask him to go behind Bernie and give him one final push. Finally, they're like, look, man, either you push him or you go. And he's like, then I'm gone. And that's the whole funny candid camera moment. I was like, hey.
Yeah, but like, I just wish he would have like said it way cooler. It's like, I'm out. You know, had some cool thing instead of, because I'm just gonna have to go then, and just walked.
Cruz don't want to give this guy no credit for nothing.
He was in mental anguish, Mr. Cruz, the whole time. He's finally being able to walk away, finally getting some guts and saying no.
This is a big moment for Chris. So if the twist was that Bernie was still alive, the twist of all twists, Chris was not the only one this experiment had been done on.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
I will give him that.
Earlier on in the episode, they introduced the whole chair experiment, and they came up with 5 very, very gullible, compliant candidates, of which Chris was one of. But there was another. It was like a girl named Hannah.
I thought it was him and 3 other people.
Oh, was it? Okay. I can't remember.
Because I think it was 4.
Oh yeah, it was 2 girls and a dude. Yeah.
Because Chris was probably one of the only ones who said no, that he wasn't going to do it. And the other 3 that they showed at the end of the movie actually pushed poor Bernie off of the roof. I mean, what was funny was some of their reactions.
I think my favorite one was the one that's just like she was head down crying the whole time, just like, didn't even.
Okay, I wanted to see that other dude, man. Like, not Chris, but the other guy. He looked the least disturbed to murder somebody than him.
No, oh yeah. He had the most minor hesitation. He's like, all right, got it over with.
No.
And he had like this creepy smile. He's like,
oh yeah.
So the show kind of wraps, and that's basically the push right there. But it ends with all the contestants being convinced to go on camera and be happy that they've had this experiment, which was clearly another Darren Brown mind for these guys, like manipulating them even deeper into being like, hey, I know this is super traumatic. I just showcased for the world how gullible you are. I even made you murder somebody. And I'm sure this is going to have a great impact on your career and all your social relationships if this gets out. But hey, you know what? I really feel that this could be good for you. And, and then they all went along with it.
Dude, yeah. Like, the thing that killed me was like, give me an extra 10 minutes of footage to just record them going to work when it finally airs. To watch like, Karen, you are a horrible person.
That's what I'm saying.
I want to see that footage.
Yeah, because imagine like trying to sit next to somebody and work with them. Like, I don't know if I could work with you, Cruz. Like, if I knew that the night before you were convinced to murder somebody, like that would just ruin the vibe.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Any poor person that's like dating these people, like sleeping with one eye open, like, oh God. About to like wake up and Darren Brown decided to like have him smother me with a pillow.
Okay, so final word, Miss Soto. Do you regret watching it?
It was hard to watch, but it kind of like, how many times in a person's life do they get persuaded to do things that they really don't want to do, So maybe by watching it, people's eyes will be open to be like, hey, that, small things add up to big ones. I don't know.
How about you, Mr. Cruz? Would you recommend this to somebody else, and do you regret watching The Push?
It had its slight redeeming qualities to where, I got some laughs out of this poor guy's panic, but I definitely feel I could have spent my time watching something else. It's just,
is there any lesson to be learned?
The only thing that I thought was interesting is like, I wonder if like I can apply these manipulative techniques, like not for like something diabolical, obviously, just like,
but to help your
just
students.
Like, no, more for like, hey, I want a burger tonight, and then like,
can a man be manipulated to giving me a burger?
Yeah, Brittany comes home, my wife, and then it's like, hey, can you just hand me that pin? I need it real quick. Got her. Well, I need some more ice.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, that wraps another episode of Movie Book Club. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and like, share, subscribe on this thing. If you want to join along, we're about to announce the 3rd episode's Movie Book Club watching assignment. Miss Soto, what is episode 3's watching assignment?
Episode 3 is Love is Blind.
I know almost nothing about this concept, but I am so down to watch this thing. From the little I know, it's like this dating scenario where you put people in pods or something?
Yeah, and they never see each other until like a big reveal. And then they try to like do life together, I guess.
Your homework for the next week is the first 3 episodes of Love is Blind. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been another episode of Movie Book Club. Miss Soto, where can the people find you online?
I'm mostly on Instagram at Pray, Teach, Eat.
Awesome. And Mr. Cruz, I know you're not a big social media guy, right? So what's going to be keeping you busy for the next couple days?
I'm just going to be doing Miss Daddy stuff.
Well, thank you so much for hosting today. If you like the show, like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and we're out.